good morning. Please rise and join us in singing a hymn we should all know, number 311. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, sing the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for sorrow, time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance with you. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out of the night. Without the darkness, no light. It's nothing from the mountains rise. Let it be a dance. Be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine shake the land, rain the rain, and rain is coming again. Let it be a dance.
Oh, what a great way to start the morning. Thank you. We're going to begin our worship with the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Michaela is going to light our chalice this morning. Michaela, do you want to come on up? And as she lights our chalice, will you join me in saying our chalice lighting words in your order of service? We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, to remind us to connect in spirituality and service, to care for each other and the world, and the loving community. Thank you. So for our story this morning, I'm going to ask you to help me out by getting out your keys. And we're going to make rain together. So when I hold the keys up and shake them, I want you to do the same. And then when I put them away, you'll put them away. Okay? Not so very long ago, in a place not so different from this one, lived the keeper of the rain. And each day, the keeper of the rain would carefully watch all the plants and creatures, and when they began to droop, she whispered the words that would bring rain. And they would all stand tall again. And each day, the keeper of the rain carefully listened to the rivers and the streams, and when they swelled to a big roar, she whispered the words that would send the rains away again, and the waters would be quiet. So after Many, many days of this, too numerous for us to count. The keeper of the rain was very weary of all this listening and watching, always paying attention to what was going on around her. There had been a new keeper of the rain born, but he was still a very young child. But she thought, I can't wait for him to grow up before I turn over this job. I'm so weary. So she went to find the boy, and she found him by the pond. She peered through the cattails and saw him standing deep in the water as he bent over and plunged his hands into all the muck of the pond. And he stood up with this armful of muck and a crawfish in the midst of his hands. And the keeper thought, oh, he's so young. But then again, I was young too when I started this job. So she walked through the cattails and into the water, and she bent down and she whispered into the little boy's ears. And when she was done, she smiled as she hadn't smiled in a very long time. And she walked away. Well, the boy watched her for a few minutes until the crawfish wiggled itself loose and jumped back in the pond. And he bent down to find the creature again. And as he was searching for the crawfish, he forgot all about what the keeper of the rain had whispered to him. So he splashed and played until his lips turned blue, and then he tromped off into the sand and the grass to his favorite rock, sun-warmed and flat, as ancient as the rain. And he lay on the rock, basking in the sun, listening to all the peeping frogs and telling the rock his stories about the pond and the muck and the cattails and the crawfish. And the rock listened and laughed with him in that low, rumbling way that rocks have. And the next day, the boy splashed and played until his lips turned blue, and then he tromped through the sand and grass and lay on the rock again. And as the boy basked in the sun, a raindrop fell. And the boy looked up and he said, I don't like rain. And the raindrops kept falling, and then the little boy remembered what the keeper had told him. So he whispered the words that sent the rain away. The sun reappeared, and the boy lay back down on the rock. Well, each day after that, the boy splashed and played until his lips turned blue, and then he would go to the rock and lay in the sun. Many, many days like this went by until the rock said to him one day, boy, have you noticed the plants and the trees are turning yellow? And the boy looked up, looked around, and he said, you know, I like the color yellow. But they need rain, said the rock. And the boy said, but I don't like rain. And so many, many days again went by until the rock one day said, boy, do you notice now that all the plants and trees are brown? And the boy looked up and he said, I like brown. But the rock said, yes, but they need rain. And the boy said again, I don't like rain. Many more days went by until the rock said, have you noticed, boy, that you have to walk further to your pond? And the boy looked up and he said, who moved my pond? And the rock said, well, no one's moved your pond. It's just that it's gotten smaller because there's been no rain. And then the boy listened. He realized there were no frogs peeping. The rock said, "Frogs can't live without rain." The boy felt a heaviness in his chest then, and he had no magical words to whisper away that awful feeling. He loved the sun, but he also loved his pond, and he loved the frogs. And so finally, he whispered that word that brought the rains again. And the cold, wet drops fell, and they fell, and they fell, and they fell, until the boy heard the rivers and streams roar again, and he whispered the word that took the rain away. Because he still didn't like the rain, but he loved his pond. Thank you for listening. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to worship at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro. I am Reverend Patty Hanneman. I am serving as the minister of this congregation while Reverend Sadie is on sabbatical this summer. Unitarian Universalists believe that each person has a trustworthy relationship with the Spirit, with the Holy, with the source of all life, with what some call God, though we name it and know it differently from one another. And we believe that because we are all interconnected, no one is free until we are all free. So we strive to build beloved community, staying firmly planted in our fellowship with one another and in our work for justice. Whether today is your first day here or your thousandth Sunday with us, we are stronger because you are here with us this morning. We are a people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders, all growing, all learning, all beloved. I remind you now to turn your cell phones off if you haven't already done so. And we are grateful for our staff and everyone that is responsible for our ministries here. Our ministry team consists of Cindy Dillard, our Director of Children's and Youth Ministry, Julie Hamilton, our Congregational Administrator, and the Reverend Sadie Lansdale, our minister who is on sabbatical. Dan Smith is our musician this morning, and thank you for everyone who's supporting us with our music. Would you please join me in our church covenant this morning, which is found in your order of service. We, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Greensboro, do covenant to promote the search for personal meaning, respecting the individual truth in a community process of quest, speak and act with caring, courtesy, and love, thereby maintaining emotional, physical, and spiritual safety for all. Support UUCG and denominational efforts with our resources. Combat justice while promoting equality. Nurture our children on their spiritual journey. Hold ourselves to this covenant, especially during times of conflict and disagreement. Thank you. Please stand in either body or spirit as we sing our next hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather
joining us in the sanctuary this morning, will you please say hello to all those who are joining us online? And if you are online, go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, if you would. And now, if you are here in person, I invite you to stand and move around the sanctuary and greet all of your neighbors. It's beautiful to be together this morning once again. We gather in gratitude, turning our hearts to thanks and praise for this gift of living in the presence of the Spirit that animates all of life, and in the knowledge that we are powerfully and profoundly connected to all that is, all that has been, and all that will be. During these next few moments of silence, you can focus on something you're grateful for, or focus on someone that's in your heart this morning, or just feel the sensation of the chair that supports you. You would put your feet firmly on the ground. Take a couple of deep breaths. Exhaling slowly as we settle into our shared silence together. We bring the echoes in our hearts before our community and before the holy in this sacred time and space. If you're online, this is the time to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. And if you're here in the sanctuary, if you have a milestone you would like added to our prayers, please fill out one of the yellow cards in your order of service, and the ushers will collect them from you. As a reminder, if you are in need of any finances for medical bills, groceries, or other needs, feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is in your order of service, or you can contact the church through our website to access the minister's discretionary fund. As the music begins, if you feel called to come forward, if there's a joy in your heart, please place a flower in the vase. If there is a sorrow, place a stone in the bowl. And then you may light a candle on either of the tables at the edges of the sanctuary this morning. And if you're not sure how you're feeling, if you're a little antsy, there are pipe cleaners in the back that you can fidget with. You are invited to do some knitting or whatever makes you most comfortable. This is the time when it is time to take stock of how we arrive here, what we need, knowing that the table is set for us all. you join me in prayer and presence? In this moment, bathed in silence and song, we offer our joys and sorrows alike, knowing they are woven fine. We have lots of joys this morning, and a tad of sorrow. Shavanta Kuker, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Keeker, thank you. Says that we're joyful about the nursery worker Carice is headed to New York City for a master's in music. But we're sorrowful they will be leaving. Sometimes the words, Carice is here, got Miriam out of the car. Our prayers of compassion for you and joy as well. Alex Moore writes that it's my wife Ashley's 29th birthday. Congratulations. Prayers of gratitude for your birth. Becky Lindsay says that my joy is I participated in the screening of proper pronouns yesterday in the sanctuary, thanks to the Welcoming Congregation Task Force for bringing the film, its director, and 3 featured ministers to UUCG. And Ashley is also feeling that same joy for a successful showing of proper pronouns yesterday. Joy and gratitude for that. Adele Coleman writes that today is my husband Jim and my 24th anniversary. Congratulations. Marie Huck, sorry if I'm getting names wrong, is grateful that the UUA General Assembly is meeting in person this year and sad that she couldn't be there. Thanks to our delegates, Heather Rushford, Donna Scheidt, Michelle Lee, and Amelia Maddox. And by the way, I'll just, before I forget, I'll let you all know that the General Assembly worship, Sunday morning worship, is going to be broadcast at 11 this morning if you're interested in watching that. That's always an important part of our collective consciousness. Michaela is has a joy that we're having some good weather and pretty flowers today. Phoenix Putney says thanks to Mary Davis for graciously hosting our spiritual support group and our able leaders, Carolyn and Tom. Joy and gratitude for that. Thank you. And now will you join me as I say some words by Joan Javira Duval, spoken meditation. You are beloved, and you are welcome here. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, you are beloved, and you are welcome here. Whether you feel brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, you are beloved, and you are welcome here. Whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing promises, you are beloved and you are welcome here. Whatever is in your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, you are beloved and you are welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, covenant and connection, we gather in faith once again. Amen.
Voice still and the small, deep inside all, I hear you call, sing in storm and rain, sorrow and pain, still will remain. Calling my fears, quenching my tears, through all the years, I'd like to introduce my friend to you, Dave Him. His name is not in the order of service because I didn't ask him to come until last night. Isn't he a good friend? Thank you, Dave. Oh, almost forgot the most important part. I need your help as usual, okay? Let's start with our favorite word. Love. One more time. Love. How about this? Love conquers all. One more time. Love conquers all. You're welcome to sing anytime you like, but when it's in bold, that's when we're all supposed to sing together. Okay? When you're down, so full of sorrow, can't even see there's hope for tomorrow. Breathe to yourself now these three magic words. Love conquers all. Someone there, right by your side. No road too long, no mountain too high. I'll say it again, there's only one cure. Love conquers all. Your turn. Love conquers all. I read it in a book somewhere. More go. Love conquers all. I read it in a movie one time. I admire your enthusiasm. Let's do that again. Love conquers all. Now it's my turn. Read it in a book somewhere. Now everybody. Love conquers all. I saw it in a movie one time. Darkness is gone, we left it behind. We searched for so long, no light at the end. Said it before, we've tried everything. Love conquers all. Love conquers all. I read it in a book somewhere. Love conquers all. I saw it in a movie one time. say, love conquers all. I hope we see it someday.
Thank you. And now we invite the children and youth to the RE wing for snacks, some story, and some community building with artwork. When I was in seminary, long time ago now, one of my favorite courses was taught by the Reverend Dr. Richard Gilbert, and it was called Justice, Ministry, and Advocacy. Gilbert reminded us that justice always begins in our closest spaces, and that many of our congregations fall into the trap of letting individual rights trump the health and well-being of the larger community. He said, true justice always strives to balance personal freedom with the needs of the greater community. And this is not just the case in the justice work that we do beyond our walls, but within our congregations as well. Like the little boy in our story this morning who hated the rain, he needed to give up his freedom to have days on end of sun-baked pleasure to feed and nourish the earth around him. My message this morning is the third in a series of summer reflections about what it means to be and build a life-giving and hope-sustaining community of faith within a liberal and progressive context. I've been using different parts of a house as metaphors for that building, and this morning I turned to the use of the metaphor walls, the sheltering walls, those boundaries and those internal structures that are necessary for healthy congregational life. As Gilbert suggests, we sometimes get stuck in our first principle, promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In other words, we get stuck in our own perspective and opinion, rather than engaging in the deeper transformative work of balancing our own needs and desires with the health of the community. And sometimes that means we decide to stay home. Sometimes that means we begin looking for another faith community that might be a little bit more suitable to what we feel our needs are. But as one of my colleagues likes to tell his members every once in a while, if you find that perfect congregation, you should join it immediately. But then remember, once you join, it's not going to be perfect anymore. As Unitarian Universalists, we are not bound by creeds, as many religious traditions are, but by covenants and covenantal relationships. And it's this concept I want to focus on today as the frame that forms our sheltering walls of our religious home. They are the glue that hold us together, that keeps hate out and holds love in. Covenants in and of themselves don't assure life-giving communities. We say a covenant, we repeat our covenant every Sunday morning. Covenants are kind of sticky animals in that they might actually foster circles of exclusion that justify nasty treatment of anybody we consider unworthy of our covenantal relationships. Consider the history of the Unitarian side of our heritage. We like to think that we come from the Pilgrims, but actually most of our forebears were Puritans from New England. And they were the ones that first developed the concept of covenant on American soil. Their covenants were actually their bylaws. They saw themselves as living in a hostile world, so they sought to segregate themselves from the world by creating elitist communities based on their covenants. The sifting process through covenant had tragic consequences for indigenous people who they assimilated or annihilated, for women accused of witchcraft, and anyone they deemed to be undesirable. Our covenants need to correct this historic Unitarian bias toward banishment, thinking that anybody who doesn't fit just needs to go away. Covenants need to be directed to the thriving of all beings, not just some. So they can't be written to exclude people that we fear. The universalist concept of covenant, which is radically welcoming, yet balances individual needs with those of the whole, is what we need to foster justice within our own walls. At the heart of these kinds of covenants is not banishment, but the relationship between all those who sign on, so that when a covenant is broken, the goal is not shunning or exclusion, but reconciliation of the parties involved. And while this all sounds like a marvelous idea, it is so hard to practice. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about covenants and covenantal life is because back in the day, I served as a good officer for the UU Ministers Association. And for those of you who don't know what that is, a good officer is a minister who's been selected by their colleagues to serve as a presence and mediator when there's a congregational conflict that includes the minister. And so a good officer will be called in to work in collaboration with the Unitarian Universalist Association staff to help resolve those differences. In this work that we would do together, the first step was always to sift through all of the foundational documents of the congregation, the bylaws, the policies, the contracts with staff, the letter of call to, with the minister. And we would look to see where they've either been broken or simply misunderstood. It was amazing, simply amazing, really, that as we would look through these, we would find people didn't really understand what was in them. They'd never looked at their bylaws. They'd never paid attention to the letter of call. And so, we'd find people thinking that their staff or their ministers were really bossy. And when they looked at the letter of call, they would say, oh, guess what? They're doing their job. And actually, they're doing it pretty well. So this was an important part of what we did. Our goal was always to repair relationships and not to point fingers at people. Usually I would find that if there was a congregation that had a solid sense of purpose, of mission, and clear procedures for handling conflict, or having someone who's designated to go to if there was a concern or a complaint, and well-written covenants and understanding about how the congregation actually functioned, they were, they usually didn't need our help, or they needed very little help. But this often wasn't the case. And to tell you the truth, that once we looked through those documents and talked to a few members, the next thing we would do would be to pay attention to what was going on in the parking lot. Watch for what Peter Steinke, who's written volumes about congregational life, calls murmuring. Now, I'm going to tell you how he defines murmuring. And as I do so, I offer this as a cautionary tale, not because I've seen it happen here, because I think this is a pretty healthy place. And also, I don't want to give you the impression that complaining or voicing concerns is a bad thing. As long as it's done respectfully and it's done to the person or persons who are responsible, it's actually a very healthy thing. But here's what Steinke calls murmuring. He says there's 4 different kinds of unhealthy murmuring that you should watch out for. The first are secrets. Secrets are skeletons in the congregational closet that only some people are aware of, but they keep kind of hinting at it, because they're in the know. The second kind of murmuring are accusations, blaming somebody for being the root of all the problems that you see. The third, and I've seen this happen, these are out and out lies, where people are trying to manipulate a situation by telling untruths. Sometimes they do this to smooth over a situation, they say. And last but not least, there's triangulation. Triangulation happens when you are upset with someone and you tell somebody else that you are upset with them, and then you expect that person to go back to the person you're upset with and fix your problem. That's triangulation. And all of these things can make a place not feel so great. Visitors will pick up on these things right away and generally not come back. They're like rodents chewing on the walls of your house. Steinke often talks about a church in the Midwest he once consulted with who could not quite figure out, they were just so flummoxed about why they seemed to be wilting on the vine. They couldn't keep visitors. Until he drew people's attention to a parking lot conversation between a member named Ed Schmidt and other members. Ed Schmidt seemed to be usually dissatisfied with whatever was going on in the congregation, And he would hold court in the parking lot after Sunday services, and people would gather around him because they, we're human beings. We want to be in the know, and Ed always seemed to know what was going on, even though he really didn't. And he would pass on his complaints and misinformation about what was happening and who was responsible. Steinke told the group that the fix was not to banish Ed Schmidt, but to build a culture where the listening was recognized as not so healthy to the spirit of the community. And he said, pay attention to when you're being Schmitted on. At least stay curious about what is being said instead of just taking it as fact. You probably don't want to write that in your covenants, but it's important. It's what I call one of the soft covenants of congregational life. Pay attention to when you're being Schmitted on. And here are some other soft covenants that you might want to adopt for yourself that will make us stronger, both as individuals and as a community of faith. First one, which you're all doing this morning, and that is show up on Sunday mornings. If you are in town, please come and worship with us. Be here in person, if at all possible, and help us create the vibe that is this congregation. Sunday mornings are when you find out what's happening. It's where our children are educated and we get to sing together and play together and celebrate being us. I encourage you not to scan the e-news to see what the sermon is going to be about before you decide to come, because a sermon only lasts about 15 minutes. And so it's really a minor part of the service. Come here to be with your people. The second thing, participate in one program a year that feeds your spirit and deepens your soul. Take a class or sing in the choir, join a small group, something that helps you form relationships on a deeper level than we can do by gathering on Sunday mornings. 3, participate in some sort of outreach project or serve the congregation in some way. So you were doing something to feed yourself and you were doing something to feed others as well. And sometimes those can be the same thing, but often you need to balance both. And the fourth one is especially important, I think, as we recover from the pandemic, and that is to help rebuild a robust program for our children. Please do not let just the parents be responsible for this. Especially now, they are still recovering from some really hard pandemic years. And in their weariness, they need all of us to help them recover. There is nothing more important, no stronger covenant to our faith than nurturing, mentoring, and teaching the next generation to make sure that our values carry on. And last but not least, be familiar with the bylaws and the policies of this congregation. These are not just for your board members, they're for everyone. Together, they represent a shared understanding of how you all work together. So they are covenantal in nature. Sometimes a peek at the bylaws can show you that things are actually working as they should. A community that learns the art of covenant making and restorative practices will build strong sheltering walls to keep hate out and hold love in. our relationships with one another are our most important currency. We cannot afford to be unwise stewards of this resource. So in the midst of an economic, social, and political system that seems to be increasingly bent on seeing some of us as expendable, we as people of faith are called to resist expendability. So let us nurture our relationships, teach our children, enrich our spirits, and serve in ways that are consistent with our highest values. May it be so. Amen. Will you stand, please, if you're able to, for our next hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. One of the ways that we live out our mission to create loving community is to contribute financially to the ministries of the congregation and to the good works of our community partners. This month, we are sharing our morning offerings with the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministries of North Carolina, directed by the Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson. UUJNC works to connect congregations across the state to collectively extend love to the public square. If you would like to make a contribution for this morning's offering, you can do so in the link in the description of this video, or you can mail a check. For those of you who are here this morning, our ushers will come forward to collect the morning offering. Thank you for your generosity this morning. Please check your order of service for the announcements this week, and you are invited to stay for a time to talk about the service this morning if you like. We'll begin at 11:15, promptly at 11:15, even though we're a little bit late. So grab some coffee, come back and join us. And I leave you with these closing words. May you be filled with the blessing of this covenanted community. May you carry them with you as you depart from here, and may you discover places in the world where these blessings are needed. May you have the courage to share them. Go in peace, my friends, and blessed be.
Please rise. We're going to sing number 1008 in the teal hymnal. When your heart is in a holy place, our heart.
And thank you for the grace when your service leader messes up the order of service. Will you please join me in our chalice extinguishing words? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. For warmth of community, for the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace.
the way to look at it. I'll take that one. I'll just throw that one out to the side. So it seems worse.